Please, just look at me. Don't shut me out like this. I can't lose you.
I've always known Nathan had a way of pulling away, drifting farther the more I tried to hold on. But I believed in him. I believed in us. I convinced myself that if I just waited long enough, if I showed him enough love, enough patience, he'd come back to me. It wasn't always like this, of course. There were times, rare ones, when I felt like we were still connected. But those moments seemed to fade with each passing day. He became more distant, always busy with work or friends. And I spent hours convincing myself it was nothing, that he'd come back to me, like he always did. But this was different. It started with a text. I'd gone over to his apartment one evening, expecting to surprise him with dinner, when I saw his phone lighting up on the kitchen counter. It was a name I didn't recognize, Alyssa. I hesitated for a moment, but curiosity got the best of me. I picked up the phone, glancing at the screen. There it was, as a picture of the two of them, laughing, standing close, their faces inches apart. It was taken recently. There was no doubt about it. My heart sank to my stomach. Alyssa? I whispered to myself, as if saying her name would make everything clear. I knew the name, of course. His first love. The one he always talked about, the one he never truly got over. She was the one he never let go of, even though he promised me over and over that I was the one he wanted. I didn't even have time to process the shock before I heard the door click open. Nathan stepped in, his face lighting up when he saw me. But when his eyes landed on the phone in my hand, his smile faltered. He rushed to me. "Let me explain," he said quickly, his voice a little too urgent. I stood frozen, staring at the photo on the screen. My hands were shaking, but I couldn't look away. His words didn't reach me. I couldn't hear him anymore. All I could hear was the pounding of my own heartbeat in my ears. Why? I finally managed to choke out. Why her, Nathan? After everything, why would you do this? He reached out to touch me, but I stepped back. The warmth I had once felt for him was gone, replaced with a cold bitterness that was too heavy to ignore. I didn't mean for this to happen. It's not what you think, he said, his voice trailing off as he saw the disbelief in my eyes. Don't. I snapped, cutting him off. Don't tell me what I think. I saw it with my own eyes. You've been seeing her behind my back, haven't you? He didn't deny it. His silence was the answer. I felt like the floor had been ripped out from under me. My chest felt tight, like I couldn't breathe. I wanted to scream, to cry, to throw something. But I just stood there, frozen, my heart breaking into 1,000 pieces. Why? I whispered again, this time my voice barely audible. Nathan opened his mouth to speak, but no words came out. It was too late for explanations now. I turned and walked out, not bothering to grab my things. I couldn't bear to be near him anymore. He had broken me. I thought I was stronger than this. I thought I could handle the distance, the coldness, but I never saw this coming. It felt like my entire world had collapsed. The door slammed behind me, and I took a deep breath. The pain was sharp, but it didn't feel like it was the end. It was just the beginning of something else. A darkness that had started to grow inside me, a need for revenge, for something, anything, that could make this right. I wasn't sure what I was going to do next, but I knew one thing for sure: Nathan would regret this. And I would make sure of it. The days after Nathan left me with nothing but shattered promises were hard. Each morning felt like a battle to get out of bed, to face the world with a smile that wasn't my own. The emptiness inside of me was a hole that seemed to grow larger with every breath I took. I couldn't believe he did this to me, who had given him everything. I was supposed to be enough. But life doesn't stop for heartbreak, and neither did I. Slowly, I pulled myself together, piece by piece. The first step was getting back to work. The familiar hum of the office was a welcome distraction. At least there, I could lose myself in the grind. But no matter how hard I tried to focus, my mind kept drifting back to Nathan, to the betrayal. I'd catch myself staring off into space, wondering how I could have been so blind. One evening, as I sat at my desk with a cup of lukewarm coffee, Zara, my best friend, stopped by. She'd been trying to get me out of the house for weeks, but I'd always made excuses. This time, she wasn't going to let me off the hook. "Come on," she said, dragging me by the wrist out of my chair. "You're not staying in this office all night. We're going out." I sighed, feeling exhausted just at the thought of it. "I don't really feel like it, Zara." "Oh, I don't care. You need to get out. Just trust me." I rolled my eyes but let her lead me to the door. That night, Zara took me to a quiet little bar that I'd never been to before. It wasn't crowded, just the way I liked it. The low hum of chatter mixed with the soft jazz music playing in the background created a soothing atmosphere. It was exactly what I needed. "Okay, talk to me," Zara said as we settled into a corner booth. "How are you really doing?" I hesitated. How could I explain the mess I was in? How could I tell her that every time I thought about Nathan, a wave of anger and sadness crashed over me? "I don't know," I admitted. "I'm trying to move on, but it feels like I'm just pretending. Every day feels like a lie." Zara gave me a sympathetic look. "You're not pretending. You're just healing. You can't rush it." I nodded, appreciating her words but feeling like they weren't enough to fix the hole in my chest. "Maybe you just need a change of pace," she suggested. "Something completely new. A new job, new people, maybe even a new place to live." I thought about it. A fresh start. Maybe that's exactly what I needed. And then, like fate intervening, that's when I met him. Marcus. I noticed him almost immediately as soon as he walked into the bar. He wasn't anything like Nathan. He was different. Stoic, with an air of calm confidence that immediately drew me in. He was dressed in a military jacket, the kind of jacket you wear when you've been through some serious stuff, not the kind of guy who played games. I caught his eye for a split second, but when he smiled, my breath caught in my throat. It wasn't some cocky grin like Nathan's. It was genuine, kind. I didn't realize it then, but that moment would mark the beginning of everything changing for me. Zara noticed my gaze. "Hey, do you know him?" she asked, raising an eyebrow. "No," I said quickly, turning back to her. "I just noticed him." Zara teased, a knowing smirk on her face. "Sure. But it wasn't about noticing him, not really. It was more about how he made me feel, like everything bad in my life could disappear if I just stepped into his world. But I didn't, not right away. We stayed for a while longer, chatting and drinking, but my mind kept drifting back to Marcus. He wasn't just some guy at a bar, there was something about him that was different, something real. He was sitting at the bar now, alone, nursing a drink. I debated whether to approach him, but I didn't want to come off too forward. I was still sorting out my feelings about Nathan, and I wasn't sure if I was ready for this. Zara, sensing my internal battle, gave me a little push. "Go talk to him," she said, winking. "What's the worst that could happen?" So, on a whim, I stood up and walked over to him. His gaze lifted from his drink, meeting mine. His eyes were sharp, but there was no judgment there. Just curiosity. "Hi," I said, my voice betraying the uncertainty I felt. "I'm sorry to bother you, but I couldn't help but notice you sitting here alone." Marcus gave me a small, easy smile. "It's fine. I don't mind the company." We exchanged a few words about the night, about the bar, about nothing in particular, but the conversation felt easy. Real. I wasn't pretending to be anyone else. I was just myself. And that felt like a small victory. As we continued talking, I realized something. For the first time in weeks, I felt light. It wasn't a miracle, and it didn't make everything with Nathan disappear, but it was a start. "I'm Marcus," he said, his voice low and steady, like he'd been through a lot in his life and was just fine with it. I hesitated, but then smiled. "I'm still figuring that out." He chuckled. "Well, I hope I can help with that. Maybe this was the beginning of something new. Maybe it was time to let go of the past." As I left the bar later that night, Zara grinning beside me, I didn't feel as broken. I wasn't fixed, not by a long shot, but I wasn't as lost as I'd been that morning. And maybe, just maybe, there was hope for me yet. Things with Marcus were simple. We'd see each other on weekends, sometimes grabbing coffee, sometimes taking long walks, just talking. His presence felt like a balm for the wound Nathan had left. He didn't push me to open up about my past, but he was patient, and that patience was something I hadn't realized I needed until it was given freely. We went to the beach one Saturday. The sky was clear, the wind soft against our faces. We sat on the sand, my legs tucked underneath me as I stared out at the horizon. It felt peaceful, like I could breathe again. "Do you come here often?" I asked, watching the waves roll in. "Sometimes," Marcus replied, his voice steady as ever. "It's nice to get away from everything. Clears my mind." I turned to look at him. He had this calmness about him, the kind that came from someone who had seen enough of life to know what was worth holding on to and what wasn't. I liked that about him. "Does it work?" I asked, genuinely curious. He glanced over at me, his lips curling into a soft smile. "Most days, yes. It's easier to think out here." "I need more of that," I admitted, my voice barely above a whisper. Marcus turned his full attention to me then, his eyes softening. "You've been through a lot," he said, his tone gentle but firm. "But I can tell you're not someone who stays stuck for long. You're strong." I laughed, but it wasn't a happy laugh. "I don't feel strong," I said, pulling my knees up to my chest. "I just feel lost." "You're finding your way," he said simply. "One step at a time." I swallowed, the lump in my throat threatening to make itself known again. His words hit harder than I wanted them to. I didn't feel like I was finding anything, but I let the silence settle between us, unwilling to argue. After a while, Marcus stood up and offered me his hand. I took it, letting him pull me to my feet. "Come on," he said. "Let's walk a little." We walked along the shore, the sand cool beneath our feet. The sound of the waves crashing against the shore was like music, but it couldn't drown out the thoughts in my head. I kept telling myself to let go of Nathan, to stop letting his ghost haunt me, but it wasn't that simple. It never was. Marcus must have sensed my mood shift because he stopped walking and turned to face me. His eyes locked onto mine, intense yet tender. "I'm not here to fix you," he said, his voice low. "I'm here for you. No expectations. No pressure." I nodded, but I didn't know how to respond. Part of me wanted to tell him about everything, about Nathan, about the betrayal, about how my heart was still broken. But another part of me didn't want to burden him with my past. He deserved more than that. Marcus seemed to understand my internal struggle, because he gently cupped my face with his hands, his thumb brushing over my cheek in a soft, reassuring motion. "I care about you," he said. "And I want to be with you. For real." I froze. "What do you mean?" My heart skipped a beat, unsure if I'd heard him correctly. He smiled, that same calm smile that always put me at ease. "I want to build something with you. I don't know what that looks like yet, but I want to see where it can go. No rush. No expectations. Just us." My breath caught in my throat. I hadn't expected that. My first instinct was to run, to pull away, but something inside me, something I hadn't felt in a long time, urged me to stay. I started, but the words didn't come. How could I say yes when I was still holding on to the past? Marcus seemed to sense my hesitation. "You don't have to answer now. Take your time." But before I could say anything more, Marcus did something unexpected. He dropped down on one knee, and for a moment, I thought I'd heard him wrong. "I know it's sudden," he said, his voice steady, "but I want to spend the rest of my life with you. Will you marry me?" I couldn't breathe. The shock of his proposal left me paralyzed. Was this a joke? Had I misread everything? I glanced at him, unsure of what to say. His eyes were serious, vulnerable. There was no hesitation in his gaze, no doubt. It was as if he had made up his mind long ago. And yet, I couldn't shake the voice in my head that screamed I wasn't ready. I started, trying to find my words. "Marcus, I don't know what to say." He smiled up at me, standing slowly. "You don't have to say anything right now. Just know that I mean it. I'm here, for you. For whatever you decide." I felt a strange weight lift from my chest. This wasn't the same as Nathan. Marcus wasn't trying to pull me into his world with promises of love only to tear it apart. He was offering me something real. Something steady. But was I ready? Was I ready to say yes when my heart was still aching? "I'm not ready for this," I finally managed to say, my voice barely a whisper. "I still have a lot to figure out." Marcus didn't look disappointed. Instead, he stood and wrapped his arms around me, pulling me into a gentle hug. "I'm not going anywhere," he said softly. "I'll be here, whenever you're ready." His words made my heart ache in a way I wasn't expecting. Maybe I wasn't ready for a lifetime with him yet. But for the first time in months, I felt like I had something to look forward to. Something real. "Thank you," I whispered, my voice thick with emotion. "For being patient with me." "I'll always be patient with you," he said, his hand resting gently on my back. And for the first time since Nathan's betrayal, I felt like I had a chance at something new. Something that could heal me. Something that could be mine. It's funny how life has a way of turning everything upside down when you least expect it. Just when I was starting to feel like I could breathe again, like I could actually be happy without constantly looking over my shoulder, Nathan came back into my life. I was standing in my kitchen, sipping a cup of coffee, when the doorbell rang. I opened the door, and there he was, looking the same, but somehow different. Older, maybe. Tired. His eyes were wide, like he hadn't slept in days. He looked like he was carrying the weight of the world on his shoulders. "Nathan?" I asked, my voice more confused than anything else. "What are you doing here?" He shifted on his feet, his hands shoved in his pockets. "Can we talk?" he asked, his voice pleading. My stomach twisted. The last time I saw him, he'd been walking out of my life, and I'd been left picking up the broken pieces. Why was he here now? "I don't think we have anything to talk about," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "You made your choice, Nathan." I know," he said quickly, shaking his head. But it's not what you think. I messed up, all right? I was an idiot, and I can't live with myself. I stepped back, the door still in my hand. What do you want, Nathan? You left me for Alyssa. And now you're here, telling me you made a mistake? You don't get to do that. He looked pained, his face tightening with regret. I know I don't have a right to ask this, but I need you to listen. I need you to hear me out. I shook my head, my chest tightening. The anger inside me started to bubble up, but I didn't want to lose control. I didn't want to let him see how much he still hurt me. I'm listening, I said, though I wasn't sure if I wanted to hear what he had to say. I wasn't myself when I left you, Nathan began, his voice shaking a little. I was lost, and Alyssa, she made me feel like I was still the same person I was before everything changed. But I wasn't. I never was. I couldn't see it at the time, but I was just running from my own mistakes, my own fears. I folded my arms over my chest, still standing in the doorway. And now you're running back to me? Nathan, I've moved on. You don't get to just waltz back into my life like nothing happened. I know, he said, running a hand through his hair. I don't deserve you. I know that. But I couldn't stand the thought of losing you forever. I made a mistake, and I know I can't fix it, but please, just hear me out. I stared at him, my heart pounding. I didn't want to feel this way. I didn't want to care about his apologies. But it was hard to ignore the remnants of what we once had. The good times, the moments when I thought he was everything to me. I swallowed hard, forcing myself to speak. What do you want from me, Nathan? What do you expect me to do? You walked away from me. You betrayed me. And now you think you can just apologize and make it all better? He looked at me with a desperation in his eyes. I'm not asking for your forgiveness. I know I don't deserve it. But I need you to know that I regret what I did. I regret losing you. And I want to make it right. I want to fix things. A wave of nausea hit me. His words sounded so empty now, so hollow. I had heard them all before, when things were good between us. But those promises had turned into lies. Now, it felt like he was just trying to make himself feel better, not actually trying to make things right for me. I'm with someone else now, I said quietly, the words coming out more easily than I expected. I've moved on, Nathan. He flinched, like I slapped him. Who? He demanded. Who is it? Is it serious? I didn't answer right away. Part of me wanted to tell him to get lost, to slam the door in his face and never look back. But I didn't. Instead, I took a deep breath and said, his name is Marcus. And yes, it's serious. He's been there for me when you weren't. Nathan's expression darkened. I could see the jealousy flaring in his eyes, the anger he tried to hide behind a mask of frustration. You're with him, then? He asked, his voice tight. You've really moved on that fast? I felt the sting of his words, but I didn't let them affect me. I've had to, Nathan. I couldn't wait for you to decide what you wanted, not when I was the one getting hurt. There was silence between us for a long moment, and then Nathan finally looked down, his shoulders sagging. I never wanted to hurt you, he muttered, almost too quietly for me to hear. I thought I was doing what was best for me. But I wasn't. I was just selfish. I closed my eyes, my heart heavy. It doesn't matter anymore. You made your choice. And so did I. He nodded, and without another word, he turned and walked away, leaving me standing at the door, wondering why his departure still felt like a weight on my chest. It should have felt like a relief. But all I could think about was the time I'd wasted believing in him, hoping he'd be the man I thought he was. I closed the door quietly, leaning against it as the silence settled in. Nathan had returned, but it didn't change anything. It only confirmed that I was right to let go. I wasn't looking back anymore. Nathan's visit lingered in my mind for days. His words, his apologies, echoed in my thoughts, like a broken record I couldn't turn off. But deep down, I knew that nothing he said could undo what he'd done. He'd betrayed me. He had chosen Alyssa. And now, when everything was falling apart for him, he thought he could waltz back into my life and fix everything with a few empty apologies. I was done. I had to be. But as the days went on, the ache in my chest didn't go away. I thought of Marcus and how he made me feel safe, like the world wasn't a terrible place after all. But I also felt the weight of my past pulling me back, like an anchor tethering me to a place I couldn't escape. Nathan's face haunted me, his words lingering like a poison. I hated that he still had this power over me, even though I had chosen to move on. It wasn't until the weekend that I truly began to understand how deep Nathan's betrayal ran. Marcus and I had made plans to spend the day together. I was looking forward to it, a chance to leave everything behind for a while and just focus on us. We went for a drive, the kind of spontaneous trip that felt like we could be anyone, anywhere, with no cares in the world. But just as we were about to pull into a quiet park, my phone buzzed on the dashboard. It was a text from Zara. "You need to know something. It's about Nathan. Meet me at the cafe in 20. My stomach churned. I didn't want to deal with this. Not now, not when I was finally starting to feel like I had control over my life again. But the feeling of dread was too strong. I had to know what this was about. "I'll be right back," I told Marcus, and his eyes softened with concern. "I'll be here." "You need to talk, I understand," he said, giving me a small smile. I kissed his cheek before getting out of the car. The drive to the cafe felt like it took forever, every red light stretching into a painful eternity. When I finally arrived, Zara was waiting outside, pacing nervously. As soon as she saw me, she waved me over. "Zara, what's going on?" I asked, my voice tight. She pulled me inside the cafe, her expression serious. "You're not going to like this, but you need to hear it." My heart skipped a beat. "What is it?" She took a deep breath. "I ran into Alyssa. She was with someone. Someone Nathan knows." I didn't think much of it at first, but then she said something that made me suspicious. I frowned. "What did she say?" Zara hesitated, clearly unsure whether to say it. But she did anyway. She mentioned that Nathan had been working with someone involved in some pretty shady stuff. She didn't go into detail, but she made it clear that Nathan had been using you to cover up some of his actions. I felt my blood run cold. "What do you mean? What kind of stuff?" Zara lowered her voice, as though speaking any louder might attract attention. "I don't know all the details yet, but it's bad. I think Nathan's been hiding more than just his relationship with Alyssa. Something illegal. He's mixed up in something, and he's using people, maybe even you, to keep it all quiet." I shook my head, trying to process what she was saying. "No, that doesn't make sense. Nathan wouldn't, he's not like that." Zara looked at me, her eyes serious. "I'm telling you, this isn't just about cheating. I think you've been used, and you need to know before it's too late." The room felt like it was spinning. I wanted to believe her, but I didn't want to. I didn't want to face the possibility that Nathan, the man I'd loved for so long, was capable of such lies and manipulation. I need to talk to him," I said, my voice shaky. "No," Zara said, grabbing my arm. "You don't. If Nathan's involved in something shady, you don't need to go near him. Not alone. Promise me you won't." I pulled away from her, my mind a whirlpool of emotions. Betrayal. Confusion. Anger. I have to know the truth. Zara looked like she was about to argue, but she just sighed, defeated. Fine, but don't do anything stupid. Be careful, okay? I nodded absently. My mind was already racing. Nathan had always been a mystery to me, but this was different. I didn't know how deep his lies went, but I needed to find out. This was bigger than his affair with Alyssa. This was about who he really was. That night, I didn't go home. I didn't know how to face Marcus, who had been nothing but kind to me. I was terrified of what I might find out. But I had to face it. I didn't sleep, my mind plagued with questions. What was Nathan hiding? How much of what he told me was a lie? And why had he kept me in the dark for so long? The next morning, I drove to Nathan's apartment. This time, I wasn't knocking on the door with a heart full of longing. This time, I had a purpose. I rang the doorbell, and Nathan answered, looking surprised to see me. He stepped back, motioning for me to come in. "What's this about?" he asked, but there was a nervous edge to his voice. I didn't waste any time. "I know you've been lying to me. I know about the things you've been hiding." His face paled. "What do you mean?" "You're involved in something illegal, Nathan. And I want to know what. Right now." He opened his mouth to speak but stopped, as if trying to find the right words. But none came. I waited, arms crossed, my patience running thin. "Tell me the truth." Finally, he sank into the couch, his shoulders slumped in defeat. "I didn't want you to find out like this," he said, his voice barely audible. "I didn't want you to be involved in this, but I was desperate. I did things I regret." I sat down across from him, staring him down. "What things, Nathan?" He closed his eyes, a tortured expression crossing his face. I was involved in some business deals. Bad ones. Things that went south. Alyssa, she was helping me keep it all under wraps. I thought if I stayed with her, I could protect you from all of this. I felt sick. You used me. All this time, you've been using me as a cover while you did this? My voice broke, and I could barely look at him. "I'm sorry," he whispered, his voice raw. "I never meant for it to go this far." I stood up, shaking my head in disbelief. I thought I knew who Nathan was. I thought he was just confused, lost, maybe a little selfish. But this? This was something else entirely. "You're not the man I thought you were," I said, my voice steady despite the tears threatening to spill. "And I'm done." With those words, I walked out of his apartment for the last time. This time, there was no question about it. Nathan's betrayal wasn't just about Alyssa anymore. It was about everything he had hidden from me, everything I had been blind to. And this time, I wasn't looking back. I spent the next few days in a daze, reeling from everything I had just learned. The shock of Nathan's confession about his involvement in shady business dealings, the lies, the manipulation, it all churned in my stomach like a bitter poison I couldn't shake off. But despite everything, I felt this strange sense of calm as well. A part of me knew that I was finally seeing Nathan for who he truly was, not the man I had loved, but someone entirely different, someone I didn't recognize. And then, just when I thought I could breathe again, I received a message. "Nathan, please, we need to talk. I know I messed up, but I can't live with myself knowing I've hurt you this badly. Please, just hear me out." I read it once. Then twice. The urge to respond was there, but I fought it. I knew what I would hear from him, more apologies, more empty promises. He was sorry, but sorry wasn't enough anymore. Sorry couldn't erase the damage he had done. I thought about Marcus, about how he had been my rock through all of this. He hadn't pressured me, hadn't asked me to choose between him and my past. He just was there. I didn't deserve him. And yet, here I was, still haunted by the shadow of Nathan, even after everything. But this message, Nathan's plea for forgiveness, did something to me. It twisted something inside of me. I didn't want to go back. I didn't even want to talk to him. But I was angry. Furious. I wanted him to feel what I felt. I wanted him to know that the life he had chosen, the path he had walked down, had consequences. So, I did something I hadn't expected. I responded. We can talk, but only because I need to hear what excuses you have left. I'm done with you, Nathan. But I want to hear the lies one last time. I hit send before I could second-guess myself. The reply came almost immediately. Nathan, please. I swear, I'm not trying to make excuses. I just need to explain. Meet me. The idea of meeting him made my stomach turn, but I couldn't ignore the part of me that needed closure. I needed to see him face to face, so I could be sure that I was really done with him once and for all. I agreed to meet him at the same cafe where Zara had told me everything. The place where everything had started to unravel. When I arrived, Nathan was already there, sitting in a corner booth, his eyes red-rimmed, like he hadn't slept in days. He looked worse than I'd ever seen him. The weight of guilt seemed to have aged him, and for a moment, I almost felt sorry for him. But that feeling was fleeting. Thanks for coming, he said, his voice thick with emotion. I know you don't owe me this, but I had to try. I sat down across from him, keeping my distance. I didn't want him too close. Not anymore. You have 5 minutes. Start talking. Nathan nodded, looking down at his hands as if gathering his thoughts. I never wanted to hurt you. I swear to God, I didn't. When Alyssa came back into my life, I thought I could fix everything. I thought I could go back to being the person I used to be. The person I was before things got complicated. He paused, his voice shaking. But I was wrong. I didn't know what I was doing. I almost laughed. You didn't know what you were doing? Nathan, you chose her. Over me. Over everything. Don't sit here and pretend you didn't know what you were doing. He winced at my words, but he didn't argue. He couldn't. I was selfish, he admitted. I didn't think about the consequences. I just wanted to feel like I mattered again, like I wasn't a failure. And Alyssa, she made me feel like I could have that. But it wasn't real. I lost sight of what mattered most, and now I've ruined everything. I looked at him, not with pity, but with something else, anger, frustration. The man in front of me wasn't the person I had once thought was my soulmate. He was a stranger, someone who used me as a cover for his own insecurities and mistakes. You're right, I said, my voice quiet but firm. You ruined everything. You hurt me. You made me believe in something that wasn't real. Nathan's eyes watered, and for a moment, I thought he might break down in front of me. But I couldn't bring myself to feel sorry for him. Not anymore. I'm sorry, he whispered, his voice barely audible. I know it doesn't mean anything now, but I am. I messed up, and I wish I could take it all back. You can't take it back, Nathan, I said, shaking my head. You can't undo the pain you caused, the lies you told. What's worse is that you didn't just lie to me, you lied to yourself. You've been running from your own problems, using people to cover up your mistakes. I stood up, my chair scraping against the floor. I don't want your apologies. I don't need your regrets. I'm done with you. Nathan's face crumpled, and for the first time, I saw him for what he really was, a man who had let his own insecurities destroy everything he once had. The man I had loved was gone, replaced by someone I didn't recognize. You have to live with this, I said, my voice cold. You'll always know that you threw away everything for nothing. And that's the worst punishment I could ever wish on you. He didn't speak as I walked away. But as I stepped out into the cold night, I felt lighter. The weight that had been hanging over me for so long, this heavy burden of Nathan's betrayal, was finally gone. I wasn't going to carry it anymore. I had Marcus. I had my life. And that was all I needed. I thought Nathan's return had been the final test. I was wrong. The true test came when he showed up again, this time, uninvited, angry, and determined. I was sitting on the couch, scrolling through my phone, trying to calm my nerves after a long day of work. I hadn't expected him to come back into my life, let alone so soon. But there he was, standing at my door. I didn't even need to open it to know who it was. I could feel the weight of his presence through the door, and my stomach twisted into knots. I didn't want to see him. I didn't want to hear any more lies, any more apologies. I was done. But then I heard it, the familiar, desperate sound of his voice. Please, open the door. I closed my eyes, feeling the pressure build behind my eyes. I had told him everything. I had made it clear. I wasn't going to be his safety net anymore. But here he was, testing my resolve once again. I took a deep breath before opening the door. There he stood, disheveled, his face tense with frustration. His eyes were wild, almost frantic. What do you want, Nathan? I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. I wasn't going to let him pull me back into his chaos. Not again. I came here to talk, he said, his voice low but urgent. I know I've screwed everything up, but I can't stand the thought of losing you like this. I crossed my arms over my chest, narrowing my eyes. You already lost me. You lost me when you chose her over me, when you lied, when you used me to cover up your mess. Nathan's jaw clenched. I know I hurt you. I know I don't deserve your forgiveness, but I can't live with the fact that I've destroyed everything between us. I shook my head. You didn't just destroy us. You destroyed my trust. You lied to me for months, Nathan. You don't get to just waltz back in here and expect me to forget that. He took a step forward, his hand outstretched, but I didn't move. I couldn't move. If I let him close to me again, I'd be giving him the power he didn't deserve. Please, he said, his voice cracking. Just listen to me for a minute. I never wanted any of this. I never wanted to hurt you. Alyssa she was a mistake, a distraction. She wasn't what I thought she was. I never stopped thinking about you. I couldn't stop the bitter laugh that escaped my lips. A mistake? She was your first love, Nathan. You told me I was the one, that I was the only one. And now you're telling me you made a mistake? I don't think I can ever believe anything you say again. Nathan's eyes hardened, a flash of anger cutting through the vulnerability he had been showing. You think I don't know that, he snapped. You think this is easy for me? You think I'm not paying for what I've done? You're wrong, okay? I'm not the same person I was when I left you. I can't undo it, but I'm trying to make it right. I shook my head, tears threatening to rise in my eyes, but I refused to let them fall. You can't make it right, Nathan. You had your chance, and you blew it. You can't fix this with words. You can't fix it by telling me you're sorry. What you did to me is unforgivable. His face twisted in frustration. What do you want me to do, huh? What do you want me to say? I've apologized, I've explained myself. What more do you want from me? I took a deep breath, steadying myself. I want you to leave. I want you to walk out of my life and never come back. I'm done. You've had your chance, and now it's over. Nathan didn't move. His eyes bored into mine, like he was trying to will me into changing my mind. I don't want to lose you, he said quietly. I love you. I never stopped loving you. For a moment, I felt that old flicker of hope rise in me, but I crushed it before it could take root. This wasn't the same love I had once known. This wasn't the man I had trusted with my heart. This was someone else. Someone who had abandoned me when I needed him most. I don't love you anymore, I said, the words coming out sharper than I intended. And I don't need your love. I don't need your lies or your empty promises. What I need is for you to leave me alone, to let me move on with my life. Nathan's face contorted with something between anger and desperation. He opened his mouth to say something, but I didn't let him. I'm done, I said firmly, my voice unwavering. Please leave. For a moment, he just stood there, silent. Then, slowly, he turned and walked toward the door, his steps heavy and slow. When he reached the threshold, he stopped, his hand on the doorknob. I'll never forgive myself for what I did to you, he said quietly, his voice breaking. But I hope, someday, you can find it in yourself to forgive me. I didn't answer. The words didn't matter anymore. I had forgiven him already. I had forgiven him the moment I decided to walk away from him for good. The door closed behind him, and the silence that followed was like a weight lifting from my chest. I felt lighter. Stronger. More certain than I had in months. As I turned back into the apartment, I felt the lingering presence of his betrayal slowly slip away. It wasn't gone completely, not yet, but it was fading. The pain that had haunted me for so long was finally beginning to dissolve. And for the first time in a long while, I felt like I could breathe again. The days following Nathan's final attempt to claw his way back into my life felt different. Lighter, somehow. The weight that had been sitting heavy on my chest for so long was finally starting to lift. I wasn't sure how I had made it this far, how I had survived the emotional wreckage of Nathan's betrayal, but I had. I had survived, and I was still standing. I spent those first few days after he left with Marcus. There was no grand gesture or dramatic proclamation. It was just us. And in that simplicity, I found peace. Marcus had been a quiet support, offering no pressure, no rush to move forward. He never pushed me to talk about Nathan, or my past, or the scars that were still healing. He just let me be. And that was all I needed. It was enough. We went on long walks together, talked about everything and nothing, laughed about stupid things, and allowed ourselves to be in the moment. I wasn't sure if Marcus realized how much he was helping me heal, but I did. I knew it. He was showing me, every single day, what it meant to love without conditions, to be patient without expectation. One evening, we were sitting on the couch in my apartment, watching the sunset spill through the window. The room was quiet, but the silence wasn't uncomfortable. It was comforting, a peaceful lull that made me feel safe. Marcus turned to me, his eyes soft, as if he was weighing his words carefully. I've been thinking a lot about us, he said, his voice steady but full of emotion. About what I want. I glanced at him, curious but hesitant. I knew what he was about to say. I could feel it in my bones. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't dread it. I didn't feel the fear that had paralyzed me before. For the first time, I felt ready. I want you, he said, his voice low, raw. I want to be with you. I know you're still healing, and I'm not asking you to rush. But I need you to know that I'm here, and I'm not going anywhere. His words washed over me, and for a moment, I was speechless. A part of me wanted to hold back, to protect myself from getting too close, too attached. But another part, the stronger part, knew that this was it. This was the person I was meant to be with. This was real. I'm ready, I whispered, my voice barely audible. I looked into his eyes, feeling an overwhelming sense of calm. I'm ready for us. Marcus smiled, the kind of smile that made my heart skip a beat. He reached out and cupped my face gently, his thumb brushing away the stray tear that had escaped. I hadn't even realized I was crying. "Thank you," he murmured, his voice thick with emotion. "Thank you for giving me this chance." "I'm the one who should be thanking you," I said, my words shaky. "For being patient, for being here when I needed you most. I don't know what I would have done without you." He leaned in slowly, giving me all the time in the world to pull away if I wanted to. But I didn't. I didn't want to. When his lips finally met mine, it was like everything that had been broken in me, everything that had been shattered by Nathan's lies, was finally put back together. It wasn't perfect, and it wasn't easy, but it was real. And it was ours. We kissed slowly, deeply, as if time itself had slowed down just for us. I felt a warmth spread through me, a warmth that had been missing for so long. I wasn't running from my past anymore. I wasn't haunted by what Nathan had done. In that moment, all I could think about was Marcus, about how far we had come together, how much we had both grown. When we finally pulled away, I leaned my forehead against his, breathing in the steadiness of him. "I'm not perfect," I whispered, my voice barely above a breath. "And I don't expect you to be." Marcus chuckled softly, his hand running through my hair. "I never asked for perfection. I just want you." I smiled, feeling the tears welling up again, but this time, they weren't tears of sorrow. They were tears of relief, of joy. Because for the first time in a long time, I finally felt like I was home. We sat together for a while, not needing to say anything else. There was no need for more words. We both knew what we meant to each other. In that silence, in that quiet embrace, I found the peace I had been looking for. Nathan had broken me, yes. But Marcus was the one who was putting me back together. And for the first time in a long time, I wasn't afraid. I wasn't afraid of love, or trust, or even of my past. I had survived it all, and now, I was ready to build something real, something lasting, with the one person who truly saw me, flaws, scars, and all. The future wasn't clear yet. I didn't know what tomorrow would bring. But with Marcus by my side, I felt like I could face anything. And that, in itself, was enough.